Hi, I'm Tracy Granzyk, here on behalf of Health Data Management at RSNA in Chicago in 2015. And I'm here speaking with Eric Rice, the Chief Technology Officer at Mach7 Technologies. And we also have Carol Corder, the Director of Imaging and Non-Invasive Cardiology at Regional Medical Center, Bayonet Point. So Eric, why don't you kick us off and talk about image sharing in general? Can you define it for us?
Absolutely, good question. Image sharing, today in our industry, there's a need to be able to better share imaging data between healthcare organizations and even share with the general practitioner, the referring physician, the pediatrician, or even the patient. So when we talk about image sharing, it's really about how we move that data. And the movement of the data could be inbound into your facility, or it could be how we move it outbound to a facility. And there's various flavors of doing that. Sometimes it's a system-to-system type sharing, whereas other times it's a system to the cloud or a system to a website or a portal for how we share imaging data.
And so when it comes to the health system side, what do you do to evaluate a good image sharing solution?
A good image sharing solution today, with the constraints that we're under, it has to be cost effective. So we look at the easiest solution to install, the ease of the end user. We don't want extra hardware, we don't want to deal with servers that we have to store a lot of data on, so the cloud-based image sharing is optimal. So we look at what will be the easiest for the patient to access and the security around that. We absolutely have to secure that patient data.
So the cloud is actually a great aspect for a company to provide access to. Okay. And some of the things to avoid, you said?
Yeah, we don't want extra hardware. The cost of installing hardware or servers that we have to manage, or data storage that we have to add to every year as we grow in our imaging. We've gone from the days of film, which was easy to pass from person to person, but now we've got massive blocks of data that we have to deal with and store and pass to physicians and patients as well.
And that talks a little bit about how solutions have evolved. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you want to touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as Carol highlighted, in the 70s we didn't share.
No.
We moved into the 80s and 90s, we printed film.
Yeah.
And then the 90s and beyond, we've been burning a lot of CDs. And as we've evolved through these image sharing solutions, the headaches have changed. Even today, where a patient walking in with a CD, it can be difficult to, if that CD was not created to IHE compliant standards, it may be difficult to import. So, now I see the evolution more to a cloud-based, URL-based, email-based form of sharing.
So that multiple users can access the same data.
Yes.
That's
Right.
And Eric, I'm going to stay with you for a minute. So what do you think are the regulatory and market dynamics driving adoption of these image sharing solutions?
Yeah, definitely. From a regulatory, we're definitely seeing meaningful use as a driver. There are requirements and incentives for healthcare institutions to be able to better share imaging data. And Carol can probably point on too, even within certain states, there's other state-driven regulations where image sharing is required, for instance, in the emergency room. But also too, more on the patient side, for instance. Even myself, my daughter, for instance, she fell and hurt her arm. We went to a community hospital, and she was scanned. But being a pediatric case, we had to transfer her to the main academic medical center. And the CD that came, was not able to be shared. And so, to me, as a patient, as a consumer on a high deductible health plan, there's pressures on the healthcare institutions from a financial perspective from the patients, but even too from the additional radiation that patients are getting if they have to be rescanned and things like that. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that shows a real patient benefit to the technology.
Right.
Do you want to speak to maybe a clinical
Certainly.
benefit?
We have in our facility a neurosurgeon that very high-end surgeries. He has patients referred from all different directions. They come from imaging centers where the CDs might not be compatible, or he has to store those CDs in an office setting because they're not ours, we can't import them. So he needs an image sharing solution that we can put everything on the cloud for him and have access to it easily when the patient comes for follow-up or they need surgical planning. So that's one instance that we would use image sharing.
Yeah, and in today's environment in healthcare with patient engagement, patient-centered care, I mean, how does this really impact the patient side of this?
Well, the patient side of it, when they come to us and they need follow-up care currently, until we get this installed, we have to hand them a CD. So that means a trip to the hospital. They have to sign permission for that CD, and then they take the CD to their physician's office. So that could be an hour away. So that saves a patient that trip.